Hola chicos, vamos a esperar unos minutos para ver si viene más gente, ¿vale? I have a restaurant just behind me, and they are trying to. They make a lot of noise. I hope they will not make so much noise right now, so it will disturb us.
No problem here. Cannot hear it. Oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Super.
Let's just wait a second. Vamos a esperar un momentico más. 2 minutos y ya empezamos.
Okay.
Wait 2 minutes more and then we start.
Bueno. Er sådan, man siger?
Yeah, yes. Okay, I don't know. Maybe we should just go. So yeah, if more people will come on, then they have to come on later.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know how many of you are Spanish or English, but I will I'll make an introduction in English and then I will change it to Spanish. So haré una introducción en inglés y luego en español. So hello and welcome to this first webinar from Try4QI and Try4QI Spain about anti-patterns in the agile development process. We have both English and Spanish speaking people on today, so I'll try to shift a little between the languages. So my name is Enzo. I'm responsible for Try4QI here in Spain. And with me I have Lars Bjørstrup, and Lars Bjørstrup is QI's lead education architect. So yeah, some people are coming on, great. I'm glad that you have decided to use this time to be on the webinar with us, and I welcome you all. A little about Try4QI. Try4QI works to ensure and improve quality of digital solutions by providing tests and quality assurance, advisory and consultancy. And then we also have a huge amount of courses, educational courses. We actually have more than 40 courses, all about agile, automation, requirement, AI, and testing in general. And all the courses can be held either physical, online. We have some courses on demand, and also courses which can be held at our customers if they need like internal courses for their people. So if you need education, then please take a look at our website. Y ahora en español. Hola a todos, bienvenidos a este primer webinar de Try4QI y Try4QI Spain sobre antipatrones en el proceso de desarrollo ágil. Hoy tenemos personas que hablan español e inglés, entonces voy a tratar de cambiar un poquito. Mi nombre es Enzo, soy el responsable de Try4QI aquí en España. Y conmigo tengo Lars Bjørstrup, que es el arquitecto de educación de Try4QI en Dinamarca. Me alegro mucho que han decidido participar en este seminario web y les doy bienvenido a todos. Un poquito sobre Try4QI. Try4QI o Try4 Quality Intelligence es una empresa que trabaja para asegurar y mejorar la calidad de las soluciones digitales, proporcionando pruebas, aseguramiento de calidad, consultoría y cursos educativos. Tenemos más que 40 cursos diferentes sobre ágil, automatización, requisitos, IA, pruebas en general. Y los cursos se imparten en forma presencial, online, bajo demanda también. Y también donde nuestros clientes si quieren cursos internos. Así que si ustedes necesitan educación o formación, por favor echen un vistazo a nuestra página web. Y las empresas pueden tener subvenciones por Fonday y los cursos también se pueden pagar hasta 4 plazos. Entonces pensamos que son interesantes. Bueno, it's important to say that the solution that we will provide are, of course, based on what we have experienced with our customers. But in your specific case, it may look different, and the solution may be different. We have our solutions are what we have seen with customers over a long period of time. So I guess that most of the problems and solutions are the same. And we will record this webinar so you can receive it afterwards. You can also receive the PowerPoint slides, and I will send you those information tomorrow. Vale. Es importante decir que las soluciones que ofrecemos se basan en lo que hemos experienciado donde nuestro cliente, pero por ejemplo, en sus casos concretos puede ser diferente y necesita una solución diferente. Pero en general creo que va a tocar a todo. Ustedes pueden hacer preguntas en español. Por favor, escriben las preguntas en español en el chat y yo voy a tratar de traducirlos y decirlos a Lars. Porque Lars no habla muy bien español. Entonces, está bien. Bueno, y también estamos grabando el webinar para podemos enviarlos a ustedes mañana con los PowerPoint slides para si usted quiere verlo otra vez más adelante. Bueno, yo creo que es todo. I think that was it. Is there, before we start, any questions? ¿Algunas preguntas antes que empezamos? Espero que ustedes puedan escucharnos, ¿no? Bueno, yo creo que ya es todo. I think it's also, I think you can take it away from here, Lars.
Thank you very much, Enzo. I will share my screen now, and I hope just you can see it now. Is it?
Yes.
Is it visible? Excellent. As Enzo explained, as I understood, my Spanish is not so good. So, and that is true. So please ask Enzo, write anything you want. I'm here also to answer questions, and Enzo also. Well, first of all, I want to say that Enzo mentioned the term anti-patterns. And what we are talking about here is actually challenges when we talk agile testing. So basically, it's about the things that we do that to handle some problems, but that we might not do in a, what should I say, a perfect way. It could be done better. And it actually stems from something called design patterns. Design patterns means when you do something, stemming from code, when you code something according to a design pattern, you do it as it should be done, the best way to implement something. It could be a design pattern for a certain programming language. But the opposite is then an anti-pattern, which is something you should not do because it will give problems, even though you do it in a good spirit. So when I was asked to talk here, I thought about just starting with a little story for you. So let me just put my screen here and see if I can switch over. Yeah, this is something you might say, whoa, what is this? This is strange. This is actually my background. I grew up in Greenland. So this is my view and me as a child in the 60s. So now me as an old man here, been working in this business for a long time. And what I want to tell you here is when I was a child, and this is actually a story that I found that I've heard also delivered by agile coaches and all that, but it's a similar thing. It's something that I experienced as a child. The story is that one day my parents asked the entire family, me and my brother and my parents, we're going to go fishing here in Greenland. And we all need to go to the boat and pack our stuff and stuff. And I didn't actually feel like going. So, you know, as a little child, I was stubborn. I didn't want to go. So what do you think my parents did? Well, they could, scold me and say, hey, you have to come and stuff like that. And that might help, but they actually did something else. They asked me instead, Lars, we need to go. We are a team here. We need to do this together. What do you need so that you can prepare for this? And I had some problem with my fishing gear and all that. So my father helped me. And the reason why I'm telling you this is the fact that this is similar to what you would do in an agile project, where you would assume that maybe you might assume that everyone in the team in an agile can do everything, like everyone can test, everyone can develop, everyone can do. But in reality, we are humans and we are good at certain things. So we should, instead of saying that the individual person should be doing what they're best for, we should all work together as a team. And that's the analogy here I thought would be fun to just tell you. So the agenda today, talk about agile thinking in general, just to tell you about the basics of agile for those of you who have been in the agile development environment. This might be a repetition, but what you have to think here is, what I want to address at least, is that agile development also includes testing. So the principles and the values that we have in agile development also are valid for agile testing. So that's a good thing to remember. So if you can actually take ownership of the agile methodologies and agile thoughts, that's why I say agile thinking, that's a very good start to be efficient and effective in your agile work as a tester. And then I'll talk about the anti-patterns, as mentioned, the things that we do wrong. And I've done that in a special way. I hope it's fun for you. And also, and then I say individuals, because we are humans, we are individuals. And even though we're working in a team, what should you, as a test specialist or someone who are not only familiar, but are very good at testing, maybe automated test, maybe testing techniques, maybe knowing the business, what should be tested, what should you actually think about? And what would be a good strategy for you as a person? So also something that could go into your career. Now, I said what an anti-pattern is. Here's the first definition here, a typical inefficient way of handling a recurring problem. So that's the agenda. And before going on here, Enzo, is there anything anyone has a question yet? Otherwise, you just interrupt me.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Now, the three
wait
typical challenges that we see when we talk Agile.
Wait a second, Lars.
Yeah.
Anthony was wanting to ask us something.
Oh, I see Anthony has a hand raised. So have you written something, Anthony, or do I need to?
He's on it. So
okay,
continue, and I will. Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, we can maybe turn the mic on. That's possible. But you do that, Enzo. Excellent. Let me just continue, and I'll get back to you, Anthony. When you say it, Enzo. The three typical challenges that we have. I just want to say that first, because these are something is going on. Oh, was that a message to?
Yeah, I just wrote to Anthony that we cannot hear him. I can see, Anthony, you have your. Wait a minute, if I can do anything about it. No, I think you have your phone muted.
Oh, maybe you can just unmute your. I think you are allowed to unmute. Anyway, okay. We will continue, and you can just get back to that.
Yeah. We try to. Vamos a tratar de resolverlo, Anthony. Pero si tú quieres preguntar algo, puedes escribirlo y hacemos de esta manera, porque parece que tú estás mute. Okay, Lars, sorry.
No problem. I want to start by saying, before going into a lot of different anti-patterns, I want to say that there are a number of things that you might consider as typical challenges. And I've taken just a few out so that you maybe can remember after this webinar, some of the challenges that would be very good for you to address. This is something we hear again and again for our customers, and whenever we have both courses and also when we have engagement with customers in the Agile space. So the challenges here are, when do we actually test? When you talk about Agile development, it's different from the traditional waterfall models. Where are we actually going in and test? So when do we do that? So that's something about the timing and concurrency in testing. Who is actually testing? What are the specific roles for working with testing, and who is actually doing that? And the final one, what are we actually testing? What is the acceptance criteria? When is it good enough? Which is a typical classical challenge in Agile, because we can continue. When is it good enough, and what are we actually testing? What is the requirements we are testing? Then I put in a word, as Enzo met, I'm not Spanish speaking, so I hope it's right. Competences in English. Competence, yes. Was it correct? Competence, yes.
It's okay, competence.
I don't know. Anyway, this is important, so I'll have a little bit about that, because that's very important when we talk Agile. In the old days, I've been working in a number of companies. In the old days, you typically just went to office and you had some test cases and you tested, and then you went home. Today, as an Agile tester, you need to engage. You need to be part of the team, as I mentioned with my little analogy. You need to have your tool sharpened and be ready to work, and also understand what is actually being built in your Agile development cycles. Could be Scrum, it could be Kanban, it could be whatever. So Agile development is a definition. The important thing in this definition is actually the one I highlighted here. It's one of the important things is that we are actually have an emphasis on delivering value to the customer. So this is very, very important that we have a focus on that. So that's what we need to do. So we need to communicate. We need to make sure we have value to the customer. So and having that is, I made a little drawing. I'm also doing some illustrations, and this is actually what I wanted to do is just right here. What we have here is, and Enzo, you must correct me if I'm wrong here. This is cliente, the client,
yeah.
the customer, yeah, and the customer has an idea. It's a called idea, whatever, and he needs to get this idea to. And then you said meta. And so right into to the goal.
Yeah, the meta.
We need to get it to the goal. Yeah. So how do we do this? This was a drawing I did years back. Please note that there are some obstacles here that you don't want to fall down and hurt yourself. So this is an analogy about what we need to do and what we need to help our customers and our projects doing. When we look at the agile thinking, we have something called a manifesto. This is 4 values. Yeah.
Just a second. Everyone should be able to speak now if they want to. So
excellent.
Please do that.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can now.
Perfect. I can hear Anthony now.
Cool.
Hi, Anthony.
You have a question?
Yeah, my question was at the beginning, you were talking, I saw the definition and it says anti-pattern is an inefficient way of, I think, solving problems, I thought. But it's always inefficient. I mean, if I implement an anti-pattern in my job, it's always inefficient. I mean, so I remembered when I was in my last job that we did an anti-pattern in a project. But it was good. It was great. And I don't know why, but it worked at the end. But I mean, I ask you, it's always inefficient way? Or...
It's a good point. It's a good point. The fact that something that you perceive as a negative thing might turn out to be positive, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And that I agree. You can have that. So as with everything, it depends. It depends on the project, it depends on the situation. So what I've put in here is some typical patterns, and you might say, oh, this actually works for us sometimes. But what I'm trying to do is try to generalize. So typically, these anti-patterns will not work. So that's so it's a very good point you have there. Never say never. You see what I mean? Yeah. So it's a very good point. I didn't mention it. I have another definition also, but you can say anti-pattern is simply, I think of it as something, it's the same as saying an inefficient way of trying to solve a problem that actually does not do well for us. So if that's the definition, then your anti-pattern might be a design pattern, a positive pattern. So a good point. So what I will point out in this lecture is also some of the examples of something. So just so that you think, is that an anti-pattern for me, for my client, for my customers, for my team? So thank you, Anthony. Very good point.
Yeah.
So getting back to the agile values, when you think about the agile values, now I'll just repeat it for you. You probably know them, but these are the 4 that you actually focus on individuals and interactions, and do that more than you actually look at processes and tools. Some do misunderstand it and think, oh, we don't need processes, we don't need tools. You do need tools very much. I mean, Enzo mentioned automated testing. Wow, you need it. But what you need even more is to focus on the individuals, the persons, and what they're actually doing and what their competencies is and how they work together. So that's what they're saying here. So this over means, not one or the other, but both, but most emphasis on this, because in the old days, we had most emphasis here. And sometimes we forgot the interactions, the communication was bad. We didn't talk to the individuals. We just went through and with the processes and the rules and stuff like that, and turned out not maybe to be the best. So the next one is working software over comprehensive documentation. Of course, it's important to do this documentation, but again, working software is more important. You might say, isn't this development? It is. But remember, Agile testing is part of Agile development. So these also works for Agile testing. Now, customer collaboration instead of long negotiations, and be ready to respond to change. We'll talk about that. So you might have a plan. That might be a good thing. You might have a what do you call a sprint plan or an agile plan, a test plan. You might have that. That's a good thing. But you don't just stick to it. You can actually change your plan, and you need to be able to change also your test plans. Okay? So there are also 12 principles, and I just basically want to say they apply for testing. So what I'll do here is just address these. And the point from this webinar is actually to tell you that the normal things we say in agile testing applies to, or in agile development applies to testing. So again here, satisfy the customer, yes. Welcoming the change, it's coming, yes. We say okay, and it can come all up to delivery. We need to test some more, right? We need to be able to say, be ready for test, and that's why both mindset, tools, and your skills is important here for you and your team. Deliver frequently. We deliver results frequently from the testing. Again, like we do in agile development, deliver frequently. Motivated teams is important, so they actually work as a unit together. Interact daily, so business and development and testers interact and communicate daily. And how do you communicate? Face to face, as written here. So it's the best way. Of course, you can communicate via email, chat, team meetings, whatever. Yeah, but the best thing is, again, just talk to people. We are just humans. Measure by working software. Yeah, Enzo?
Yeah, no, I'm just a comment. Just you said email. Don't communicate over email because it takes too long. So if you don't have the possibility to do it face to face, then call the person on Teams or something that you can also you see it face to face like we do now, because it's much more effective than email. Don't do email; it takes way too long.
It's a good point that some of these things you can put in rules, but again, as in reality, we still have email. It has not died, but you are absolutely correct. Please think of these as being more efficient. And as Enzo says, just having to look at each other to be able to look at the team to face to face is very important. We measure by working software. So what are we measuring? We could measure a lot of things. We have these metrics that we measure against, but what we actually should measure against is this software working? And that we do in testing by finding failures and defects. But that's a whole other story. But it's very important that we measure and know where we are. So what is the quality? Now this one, maintain a constant speed. I've just rewritten them to just you can look at the Agile Manifesto and see the full formulation of these. But maintain a constant speed is regarding development. So when you do development, you should be able to develop in the same speed all through the project. The typical curve is that the development will go down and test will go up. Right, that's a classical one. So in the last sprint, we will have testing, and we have no time to develop because we only have like 2 weeks maybe in a sprint. That's a classical problem. Please try to address that, and there are different ways of doing that. One thing in your refinement, please don't take too much work into your sprint. You should have time to do testing. So set up time, plan your testing. Make sure you as a team member in your Agile team also raises the fact that you need to test, and it takes time. And you also need to retest when something has been fixed. And then you need to do something called regression testing to see that it didn't have a negative effect other places. So these things you have to take into consideration. If you do automated testing, make sure that you do your automated testing as part of the sprint, not separately. We have seen it again and again. People say, oh, automated test, we'll do that in a group here. Problem is, how do you align? So again, a lot of problems. I could talk hours for that, but maintain constant speed is very important. Any comment on that, Enzo? Is that also your thoughts on or your experience?
Yeah, no. I'm totally agree that we should do the work together. Development and testing should be done together from day one and during the sprint. The only test I would say that can be done after the sprint is done, or it should be done in the sprint, but can be done after many times. Is being done after is regression testing, because it depends, of course, how big the regression test suites are, but it can take time as well. Yes, but otherwise, yes, we should work together as a team and with development testing and development together.
Very good point, and a very good point also about the regression testing. Now,
just a second, Lars. I have a question here.
Yeah.
How important do you think the correct development of user story is in the subsequent design of test cases in an agile environment? And what other issues could we take into account to be more efficient in the design of the test?
Right. So maybe I can just address it briefly, and maybe also talk about when we look in the design patterns. But I think it's very important. Actually, so important that if you look at the ISTQB standard, which is the International Software Testing Standard, if you look at that standard, they have actually, in the newest release of this standard, they have taken into account the creation of user stories. And what they say there is that testers have to take an active part in developing user stories. So before it was like, oh, some business do that, and then we test whatever, and it was the old way of thinking. Now it's the whole team approach. It's called the whole team approach, which means that we need to do that together. So I don't know if I've got the question correct, but it's like it's actually very important that we as testers go in and help there, because what we can do with our mindset, and now I'm talking about people that are testers, but in reality, you are just an agile developer. You are just part of the team. We don't maybe have testers, but you have some test knowledge. So I'm still referring to the tester role, right? So when you have that hat on as a tester, you should be able to look at the user story and say, okay, is this testable? That's the important thing. Is it understandable? And you can break that down. And also, Enzo, we can talk about that. We have courses that go into how we develop good user stories and make sure that we do that so they are, I wouldn't say perfect. They're never perfect, but they are very good for testing. So a very, very interesting topic. Thank you. That's a very important thing to know. And also that the standard had taken that up now in 2023. So now in 2024, it's in the standard, and that's perfect. So did that answer the question? I don't know if that's
yeah, no,
yes,
I think so. Otherwise, Leva, you have to just tell us. But just another thing is that of course all our work, or most of the work we do when we talk about acceptance testing, is done from the user stories. So if the user stories are not done, we cannot do testing. The development cannot do development. So this is one of the most important things to actually have done in a detailed way before we hit the sprint. So we should work together as a team with the business, with the product owner, and try to detail those user stories. So when we take it into the sprint, it is usable, because the product owner is seeing the large development of the project, but he will not be able to detail the user stories at a such level that we can take them on into the sprint. So it is crucial that the user story are not totally ready, but are ready to take into the sprint when we do that.
Very good point. Now let me just continue here and say another important thing. Oh, this one was 9. Technical expertise and good design related to testing. Yeah, both coding, both the structure of the code, the system should be good design and have good technology, be well designed. But that also goes for testing. So when you design your test cases, not only make sure they are designed correctly and at a certain level that is making sense. I had a customer recently where I asked, well, when you have a test case, how many steps do you actually have in that? And they said to me, oh, we have around 300 steps sometimes. I was like, whoa. And that's depending on what is in the step, they were very atomic steps. So like, press this button, do this, see that we have that, press this button, type this, but 300 steps still. And that's when we talk about designing, because you can actually design your tests so they encompass everything, but then you run into a lot of problems. this is actually an anti-pattern, right? You make a test case very, very long. Why? Because then you have only that to do. Oh, that's perfect. But why did you have to go home? What if something happens to your child? You need to go home in the middle of the test case. Should you start and go? You are at step 264. It fails. Next day, what should you do? Run from the beginning, maybe. So a much better strategy here is to divide it up into smaller test cases and combine these into what we call test procedures and test suites. And this is what we call design. And you can use testing techniques to help you actually find out which test cases you need. And yeah, it requires some technical expertise and good design. Now, keep it simple. Again, I mean, everything, keep it stupid simple. Yeah, KISS. But that's a general principle that's good also in agile testing. So keep it as simple as possible. I used to use the word minimal viable product because that's what we use when we develop in agile, but we can also use it in testing. So you could say minimal viable test. So we don't want to go overboard because there are some test principles, and one of these says we cannot test everything. Right? It's not possible. We cannot find all defects. That's not possible. But we can ensure by using some sort of risk-based approach that we actually target the most important. And by doing that, we ensure that we hopefully the failures that are found there were the critical ones. And by taking that approach, we keep it simple by approaching it in a targeted way. For example, by risk-based testing. Now, 11, make self-organizing team, trusting your team that they can handle the problems. So you don't have to do these micromanagement where management needs to test all the time. No, this is a self-organizing teams. And if it is Scrum, for example, which is very popular, you will have a Scrum master that actually takes care of the team, also supports the team. But it's typically not the Scrum master that have the knowledge about testing. Maybe it is. So it's the team that is responsible for testing. And again, here, the 12th one of these 12 principles I've written here, simplified, is to reflect. So also on testing. So when you do your final thoughts after the project, and you do and you think what did you do wrong and what did you do good. So when you do a so-called retrospective, please include also what did you do wrong and right in testing. So that's important. You do that continuously because part of the testing process is to monitor and be able to take control when something goes wrong. So you do that, and in the end, when you do the retrospective, you take all this into account and what did we learn, and can we do it better next time? So learn from your experiences. Coming back to anti-patterns, I see the time is running when you are having fun here. Anti-pattern. Yeah. Now we get to the meat of the talk here, maybe, I hope. So anti-pattern in agile software testing, a common practice or approach, and it's the fact that you also said, Anthony, about that it seems like a good solution, but it is bad, but it might turn out that it was a good solution. But that's a typical anti-pattern if it leads to negative consequences and does undermine the agile principles, right? So that's one thing. So now what I want to do now is go into these questions we had. When do we test? Who's testing and what do we test? So when, the first question here, I want to say something that we have heard. So I have paraphrased it a little bit, but that's actually real life thing that we hear, something like this. We test at the end of the sprint, and what we don't achieve, what we haven't done, we test in the next sprint. That's something you might hear because we have so much to test. Okay, so we push it to the next sprint, the next iteration. This is an example from a Scrum project. I heard this. So we push it to the next. Some call it the snow plow. I don't know the analogy in Spain. What would that be? You push something.
The lead snow plow. I don't know what snow plow is called in Spanish, but
you don't.
But yeah,
okay.
You're pushing it ahead of you.
In Greenland, you saw a lot of snow. When they push in the street, they push the snow, and you just say, "Oh, we have this problem." We push. In the end, you will have this huge amount of problems, right? So you need to push it to the side and solve it. Okay. So this is a problem. This is an anti-pattern example. And then again, as both you said, Enzo, and also Anthony, you said something about, but couldn't it be that we do something in next? Yeah, maybe some of the regression testing might be done, or in between, just in the end. So, yeah. So, but test as early as possible would be a good thing. So these are the solutions I put in orange here. The recommended ways of doing it from this webinar you can hopefully think about. So test as early as possible. So early testing saves time and money. That's a principle. So yeah, that's a good idea. We build a test and we don't do it in the end. We build it continuously all through the project. So whenever we can, we build some tests based on for example, the user stories that we have and the code that has been done. Also build tests on different testing levels. I will not get into depth with testing levels here, but there are different testing levels, and you actually make test cases for all levels in Agile testing. So also, one thing I've written here, finish your backlog. Make sure that everything you have as a task list, what we call a backlog, also in testing, so you make your test task also part of the backlog, you need to have those solved. So it shouldn't be that, oh, we are almost finished with this one, we'll continue the next one. Then you will run into the, what we will call it, let's call it the snowplow problem. Okay. So, and another thing which is very important, and I know Enzo and your team can help people with, to qualify and to give calls. You have courses in this and all that, and help people implement this, is automated testing. And for example, automated unit testing could be on different levels, and there could be a lot of tools. I'm not going to the tool talk. I know Enzo has a lot of knowledge there, but that's a very important. So these are something that help us so that we can actually achieve our tests. But remember, all these things also need some effort and right way of doing it. And that's why, yeah, that's why we are here. That's one of the things we actually do in Try4QI, is helping to do this right. So it actually gives benefit not only to us, but of course to the customers. So it's a win-win. Now, another one on the win is, I have heard, I cannot begin testing before we have a user interface. I don't know. Have you heard that? I don't know if you have. It's like some coders are building some algorithm, I'm building this unit, I'm building this component, and it's calculating something, and the tester is just, or the one testing, or the developer with a tester head saying, I cannot test this because I'm just building it wrong. This is actually, I would say, wrong. I'm a developer myself, have been. Now, in a previous life, I was a developer for years, and I know that, of course, you can test. So you can test before there's an UI. How do you do that? Well, you can do static testing, meaning testing, reviewing your code. You can review, you can do static analysis, which is using programs to run through the code and documents and designs and all that. So early test design, you can actually do that and test that. You can also do dynamic testing. Whenever you have something running, even though it doesn't have a UI, you can test it using tools. Could be like you test with Postman, Ready API, whatever. On different levels, you can use unit testing tools that do not require a user interface. And I'm just giving you these examples because it's something you might hear. Someone might say, "Oh, we cannot apply these principles in testing because whatever." This is just an example.
Yeah, and just think about that. Just a comment on that, Lars. That static testing, when you're helping the product owner actually detail the user stories and actually what is testable, that and developers saying we cannot do it like that. How can we do it? And you talk about how to solve this user story. That's actually static testing as well.
Yeah, true.
So you are helping out before you write any line of code. But then when your user story get into the sprint, it is much more easy to actually start developing and testing right away.
A very good point, and I would like to say also that what you're saying there is some people misunderstand this. They think testing is dynamic, always, but static testing, meaning looking at what you say, is actually also testing and is at least as important, if not more, than testing after the fact that we have built it. Now, next one, we have implemented a rule so that the testers who find the most failures, the most bugs, actually get a bonus. Yeah, is that a good idea? It might be. You might think as a tester, whoa, yeah, I get a bonus if I find something. But you might also consider what happens when you say to people you get a bonus. You go for the bonus, right? That's human. So
Straight for the bonus.
how do I get most failures? You see what I mean? So by not helping the team, they'll do some failures. I'll find them. I get the bonus, right? That's one of the challenges that I've seen in projects. So make sure it's a team that gets some benefits and are measured on not like one thing. Okay, so what I want to say here, avoid mistakes rather than find them. So instead of this, we actually want to find them as early as possible. There could be a bonus of finding something, as Enzo said, in the user story.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be, if you can measure it, saying, oh, that's great, man. We found something here you did such a good work. So that could be talking about a bonus then, instead of saying after the fact. So again, just to make you think, this might sound good, but it's a typical anti-pattern. In some situation, again, as you said, Anthony, it might work, but really take care, watch out for this one like this. Be active in refinement, early testing or etc., as you said, and so the testers are actually active in this process. Who is then doing this? And then I've heard this, the primary job of a tester is to find bugs. Again, this relates to the other one. Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that actually. So what is then the primary job of a tester? Not only in agile testing, but in testing. Well, avoiding mistakes. So that's a primary thing. So we can think that if your primary goal is to avoid, then we do this. And that's similar to what we talked about earlier. But I've heard this sentence directly as written there. Also, as a developer, my job is to develop code, not testing. I've heard that. I've even heard developers saying in some of our clients recently, a test manager came to me and said that there was a problem because the development don't want to test. And they said, I'm hired for coding. I don't want to test. That's your job. And the manager didn't want to say something to the developer because it's hard to find good developers. Okay, so that can be a problem. Why? Because everyone needs to test. The whole team is testing, also the developers. And if they can test, they could use different methodologies. For example, test-driven development or whatever. They need to do some testing. They need to take responsibility. So you are actually a tester when you are a coder. When you are a developer, you're also a tester. So that's more like the culture and something you need to put into the head of people and make sure that you have that. Otherwise, you have an anti-pattern.
And also, Lars, Jorge is writing here that ensure that the software meets the requirement. And yeah, of course, the software should meet the development should do the development and do the software to meet the requirement. And of course, the tester will test the acceptance criteria to make sure that it meets the requirement. And then, of course, that's not the only test. Then we have more tests coming after. So yeah. Excellent. And Jorge is writing that as a tester, we make sure that the software, meets the requirement. That was the one. Yes.
That's perfect. Very good point. Thank you. Thank you, guys, girls, women, men, whatever. It's good. Thank you. You are engaged.
Jorge is a man.
How do you say good in Spanish?
Bueno.
Bueno. Yeah. Can you say hola, Beno? Okay. Bueno. Yeah. Very good. Now, okay, yes. Let's continue. Time is running. Is it true that we have 10 minutes? Is that so?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Avoid bottlenecks and delays. Yeah, this one is like the family going for the fishing, you remember? So what we do as a team, if there's a problem one place, we go in and we help, right? When I was a little boy, my father helped me so we could get on the trip. And it helped. Actually, by recognizing that I have a problem, I could solve not by scolding me and giving me a bad time, actually just helping. So we help each other. Plan time for testing, also important, and that the developers also plan time for testing, not only developing. So again, development and test work as two different groups. That's a typical thing we see some places at least, and with their own tasks, etc. Again, classical problem here, the team should collaborate instead. and face-to-face communication is the best thing. So another thing, our test centers, now this is again something we have heard again and again, our test centers support all teams, so testers are not part of the team itself. And you might say, oh, that's a good idea. Then we have some testers here and they can help every team. We don't need to have test specialists or anyone knowing test in a team. So what is the problem? Well, the problem here is that, you know, when you get someone from outside in your team, they'll typically not know everything. They will not be part of the team. It can be difficult. So this, even though it's implemented many places, is actually also what I would call an anti-pattern. So instead, what we want to do.
This is one of the worst thing, actually. This I've also seen it with customers, and when we start the sprint, then the testers have not been to any meetings, and then they have, when we start the sprint, they have to begin asking. Yeah. That's way too late, because then time will run out. So it's a very bad idea.
Yeah, excellent point. And so when we say here the best results is when the testers are part of the team, it's not always feasible, I know, but that's at least a good thing. So we are team players. So
yeah, for sure.
Very good point. Developers know best how to test their own code, and they tell the testers how to test. Well, I mean, sometimes testers or people with a test background, maybe they take some courses, maybe they know a little bit. Why not ask and collaborate and do the best testing that you can, instead of saying, I know the code, then I know how to test it. Actually, it's opposite. If you know a lot about code or the business, you might be inclined to test it in a certain way that is not efficient, that does not find the bugs or the problems in it. It just says, you just prove that it works, right? But you should actually look and try also to see if you can find any problems in it. So that's a testing. You can have some biases there. So yeah, to be rightly minded, as it says here. I'll just go quickly through these next ones. We have no agreed acceptance criteria. Back to what you said, Enzo, and what we also talked about here with the participants. And this can be a problem because the system can be changed over time. Okay, we have no agreed acceptance, so we have no acceptance criteria, and that's a problem. Because what should we develop? What should we test? So what we should do instead? Yeah, we should have clear acceptance criteria, user stories. So we have some definition of ready. When is this user story ready to be developed? This should be clear. It can be changed, and typically it will be changed not in the sprint, but after the sprint, but in the refinement. But it can be changed. This is agile development, right? But we need to have it so detailed and so good that we can do it. Otherwise, it's not testable. Okay, so that's back to that problem again. So close communication is very important again. We are humans, and communication skills is very important. I put a little star there because I want to remind everyone about the soft skills that you need to have also as a tester to be able to communicate with both developers, which are a certain kind of breed, and you have mixed people like me, and then you have business people or sales people or whatever it is, you know, different type of people. You should be able to communicate. So what needs to be tested also need to be part of the definition of done. So you have a list of end criteria that you write down, and please remember to put in, and that's an important point from this lecture here, put in this one, what you need to test also in your agile development. So in your cycle, you have a definition of what you need to test. Also is part of the definition of done. You are not finished before you have also tested what is written there. So there are certain values here we talked about in agile. Have commitment, courage to say what you want and what you need, not holding back. So there should be the environment of trust. So you are not like fired or something like that if you say what you want. So openness in the team, respect each other and focus on what you are doing and what the team is doing. That's a very good thing to have. Actually, we're going from the classical functional team to a more agile team where we work together, illustrated in this way. Now, something I wanted to just put up quickly is something calling testing quadrants. We talk a bit about it, and it's something we sometimes use as a checklist. And I just want to run through it quickly also because of time. But if you are working with testing, the Agile testing quadrants could be a good way of doing some checks. So regardless of the checklist, what should I do? And this is actually 4 quadrants, and these 4 quadrants are divided into the 2 in the bottom, technology, and the 2 in the top, which is business. Then we have the supporting the team to the left, and we have criticism of the product. And in each quadrant, we have something we might do. We might do unit testing and unit integration testing. Here, it's user story testing, functional testing. So this is functional testing. This is examples here. We have user experience, prototype simulations, API testing. So you can use a checklist. You might not do everything, but you might have this as an inspiration. So use this as an inspiration to do these tests in each quadrant, depending if it is technology-oriented, business-oriented, support the team, or criticizing the product. So just a little hint from here, giving you a tool that is actually very beneficial as a checking point. Oh, should we maybe do some non-functional testing, meaning like performance testing, security testing, and all that? Should we actually do some more unit integration testing, or whatever is in this? This is actually a very good quadrant that you can use as a checklist. Here's an indication of what should be automated and what should maybe be done manually. I see there's a question.
Yeah, no, that's the Erin that has to go. Thank you for good information. Looking forward to receive the presentation.
Excellent, Erin.
Thank you, Erin.
Nice you participated. So time is running. We have 3 minutes. You see, competences, that's the final thing I want to say. Now, if you are, whatever you are in your team, maybe you are team test manager, maybe you are a tester, maybe you are upcoming tester, maybe you need to know what to do. I'll put in some things here. Keep your tools sharp. Make sure your testers or yourself knows about automated testing, for example. Know enough so that you can communicate. Take some courses, learn the terminology, and understand what we are talking about. It will help you tremendously. Know your testing techniques. Remember both functional and non-functional testing. So we should also test user experience testing, not only if it works, right? We should test performance, response times. We should test all these non-functional attributes. Is it accessible? And also be brave and dare to come with criticism. Don't hold back. You are a tester. You are okay saying, oh, this is not working. It's okay. It's fine. It's much better to do that than just hiding it. You should not hide anything. Openness, as we talked about. Be proactive, self-managing. Be a good team player. We talked about that. Think your skills rather than roles. So it's not important that you have this role. Of course, a role might give a benefit in salary and stuff. That's good. Yeah, but it's the skills that will get you through the agile testing life. Be curious. What happens if I do this? What happens here? How can we change our process to make it even better? Be sure to plan test and testware from the start. Testware is everything we produce in test. These are all the documents, the scripts, the test cases, everything we produce in test, and plan that. And then, final thing here on that, you should, as a tester, be able, as an agile tester, to inspire the team regarding testing. You know something. So you have a pride, you are pride in what you do. You can say, oh, have you tried this bad thing, see if it breaks down? You inspire people to be curious and try to do these things. And you can use some of the examples I've put in here. Ensure the necessary tests are part of the definition of done. We talked about that. And basically values as a tester here. And we can put on these extra things saying that what you need to be able to do as being self-organizing, motivated by trust, etc. And finally over here, committed to the team success, which is most important. But I put it up as a little checklist for you for this webinar to know what it was about. So in summary, we are on the dot here. When early and continuous test is a good thing. Who is going to test? Well, the entire team, and also clear acceptance criteria. Finally, I would say, make sure to sharpen your tools as a tester. And when you see this person here, I did another drawing saying, what happened here? Hey, the head of Spain came in.
We came and helped you.
Oh, yeah. I forgot something here. Can I just amend this a little bit? Let me just draw a little, I think we have No, it's Enzo without the glasses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Comes in and helps the customer.
Cool,
Getting,
cool. I think we are running out of time, Lars.
We are. It's
but
finished now, so thank you.
Just to wrap up that what some of the things really important here is the definition of ready, definition of done, be totally clear on when to take user stories into the sprint, and be clear on when the user story is done. And also we talked a little about use risk-based testing. We cannot test everything, so make sure to test the most important first. So use that risk analysis. And lately, this about the value, the agile value is that's what we call mindset. That's soft skills. This is not only about hard skills, about using tools and so on. We have to be able to work together and work on our soft skill, our mindset as well. So this is important as well. I think that was it for me. I don't know if there's any more questions. I will send you everything, the recording and also the slides, and maybe also an evaluation scheme, so you can. I hope you will answer that, so you can help us improve as well. And I hope to see you another time. And yeah, glad that you were here. There's a question coming in.
Oh.
Okay, Maya, thank you very much. Very good. Thanks, Maya. Nice to have you on board.
Thank you guys for the presentation.
Thank you very much, and have a nice evening. Hope to see you again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So how do I do here? I can end the meeting.
Oh ja, you end the meeting. Ja, du ender lige med mødet nu.